everyone. I am Lonnie, Lady Braven of the Pride, and I am passionate about inspiring, encouraging, and empowering people to stand up for themselves and be brave during a time of government corruption and medical fraud and global tyranny. I am really excited today to have this conversation with a dear friend, Susan Standfield, about her chapter in Courage During COVID, the very first brave book that I published and produced. And I have to let you know that when I conceptualized sharing these brave stories, Susan was one of the very first people that I contacted. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to read out a little bit of her background and her bio in the book, just to introduce her. And then we're going to get into a couple of really interesting conversations about the book, about everything going on, and about her new book coming out, Betrayed. Okay, so this is just a little bit of her bio. Growing up in Vancouver in the 1970s and 80s, Sue was raised to question society and work in service to others. Values she holds close today at the age of 52. This was a year ago. And Sue received a BA in political science from Queen's University at Kingston. She started her degree the same month she knew her mother had 4 months to live due to big tobacco and corrupt health policy in Canada. Looking back, that is the single most defining experience of her life. Sue has lived and worked all over the world, mostly in TV, design, and since 2001 in various roles of human rights work in Canada and Africa, where she calls home. In 2003, she founded her first social profit venture, moved to Africa in 2004, and after moving back to Vancouver in 2016, started the No More Lockdowns Economic and Natural Health Rights movement on April 12th of 2020. When she saw blatant criminal evidence of organized public health fraud in British Columbia. Susan has worked tirelessly speaking this truth to power for 12 straight months, paying a very high price for being a visible leader in the movement that has been worth every sacrifice to protect her children and all Canadian children from growing medical tyranny in Canada. Sue's work uses video and photo-based public pedagogy, educates women and moms about human rights vis-a-vis her brand Health Justice. Sue is one of those people who ended up taking the road far less traveled at a young age because of failed health policy in Canada. It has made all the difference in creating a unique, authentic life for her, her family, and a growing community of natural health activists she is proud to help lead. Thank you very much for being here and having this conversation with me, Susan. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for having me. What an honor.
Yes. So when I came up with the idea for The Brave, you were one of the first people that I contacted because you were one of the most outspoken and the most, in my eyes at the time, one of the most brave women at the forefront of the freedom movement. So when I connected with you, you were very encouraging and you were very empowering for me. And you also gave me the name of probably half a dozen of these other women in the book. So, and then I actually also consulted you on the design of the cover. I mean, you are such a big part of this book. And when I completed the collaboration with these 20 authors and we were looking to have a foreword done up, originally, we had tried to ask Dolores Cahill, and that didn't work out. And I was like, you know, I think you would have just as much to say and just as much potent and powerful wisdom to share about the purpose of this book and the passion behind it and the reason for it that I asked you to do the foreword, and I'm so incredibly grateful. Thank you very much for doing the foreword and seeing my vision and my passion for this project. And then, I mean, you were also a very important part of the completion of this project, because I consulted you and I talked to you the whole entire time I was producing it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Lani.
Okay, so you did the foreword for this book, but you also wrote a chapter in the book. And I'm going to get to the chapter in a minute, but before that, I want to read out a couple paragraphs of this foreword that I love so much.
Can I say something quickly before you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason, just so I don't forget it, the reason why I helped you so much, not because I wouldn't have, but I realized, like so many people, that helping you become an author was just as important as us speaking out, you know. God, I didn't think I was going to cry, sorry. And there were so many people who would not work with us, who would not publish our stories. Everybody betrayed us. And there you were. I don't think you had published books before, and you were grasping to figure out all these basics. And I was like, everybody has to help her, not just because I'm in the story, but because we have to have our story told. We have to have a document of what happened. And you were probably the only person at the time doing it. And so that's why I helped you, because I knew that what you were doing was so important for so many people, and you're passionate and you're creative. And I was like, she's just going to do this. And here you are, you've done your third book.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a big part of building a movement, is empowering others in the way that to build up their unique skill set that nobody else has, because we need it all. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cry.
Oh, no, thank you very much for sharing that. And you actually shared a lot of that also in the foreword. So I'm just going to read out a couple of these paragraphs, because it was so beautifully written and it really did capture my passion for the project as well. Okay, so the foreword is by Susan Standfield. Of all the human traits, bravery might just be the most important going forward. Compassion, yes. Open-mindedness, certainly. Humor, without question. Those are all highly valuable human traits that make life worth living. However, bravery holds a unique and timely space for all Canadians right now in the spring of 2021, to challenge us to rise up despite our fears so we can all be brave in the face of growing tyranny. Being brave is how we're going to win our freedoms back, one person, one voice, one moment at a time. Oh, I get chills every time I read that. Thank you so much. And then this is another paragraph. I can't read the whole entire thing, but this is another paragraph from the foreword. This beautiful book is full of stories who have expressed unusually high levels of bravery over the past year to expose the fraud of COVID in Canada. We have been silenced, shamed, assaulted, slandered, disowned, arrested, stalked, and humiliated by a system so corrupt it seeks only to protect its self-interest and not us, everyday Canadians, who are now victims of it. Every person in this book was chosen for their incredible story of bravery. And I hope you take the time to read each one slowly with contemplation about how you too can be brave despite any fears you may have. If you want to be brave, but you think you're too afraid, try to remember this. The moment you speak out, the instant you go into action, you will be forever changed for the better, and you will never be afraid again. In fact, you will know what every person in this book also knows, that you were only afraid of fear itself. Let your soul guide you. That is where all bravery dwells. Susan Standfield, thank you. That was the most beautiful foreword. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, you really described, you really captured all of the passion and the intention behind every single solitary author that shared their story of being brave during COVID. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
You also wrote, chapter number 2 in the book is called The Third Jeep. And I don't want to give it all away. I want people to really go out and get this book and read these stories. But I'd like to ask you if you could just give a little bit of a description of why you called it the third Jeep.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm honored to share this because this is probably one of the most important aspects of advocacy or activism, whatever you call it. And that is what you nailed, which is bravery. And all the other skills are really important, but nothing happens if people aren't brave. It's just background talk. We talk about it, but nothing happens. So my background, and this is something that people should read about, and they should buy your book, and they should train themselves and research and learn about advocacy so they can be good at it, right? And you've got 60 voices of people who can train Canadians, because we all did it in different ways. So my human rights advocacy came from war. I was trained to bear witness in war, in the Blood Diamond War of West Africa, Liberia, Guinea, 2001. And I was sent there by Médecins Sans Frontières after being trained. And so a lot of what I had done in the previous years and the following years were around the idea of advocacy to do with war, like major human rights violations, stuff that we haven't seen in Canada. And there's a lot of metaphors around war that I picked up. And I made a decision I didn't want to work in war again after that, but I still had that knowledge. And that's where the third Jeep story comes from. It's an old war analogy that when a battalion or a force, an army is approaching enemy lines, people are sent out in 3 waves. And so the first Jeep starts driving to the front lines. And that's the Jeep that the enemy hears, and they wake up, and you imagine this like Second World War, right? As like ground wars. And they hear the Jeep and they're like, oh, the enemy is approaching. And so they get up. And then the second Jeep comes and they hear the second Jeep, and that's what they fire their gun on. And they pick up their gun and they point at the road where the Jeeps are coming from. So it's the third Jeep that comes that actually gets shot at. The first Jeep is just the runner. The second Jeep is the accuracy of the weapons. The third Jeep is the one that sustains the most assault. And so the strongest, most protected forces have to be in that third Jeep. The flak jackets, whatever, so they can sustain the injuries, or stronger, faster drivers or whatever. So it's an elegy in many ways, and it's called the third Jeep. And I never forgot that story when I heard about it. And when I decided to speak out, and that's why bravery was so important and what you've nailed on, I did it because I knew that almost nobody was going to be brave enough, because nobody was doing anything for months. And I was like, they're not doing it because they don't have the guts. A lot of people knew it was wrong and they just didn't have the guts. And I said, well, hell, I'll throw myself in there. I've got guts. And so I knew that I would get attacked. I knew I would have to be strong. I knew I was going to be that third Jeep, and that I would take the most hits. And I paid a very high price, and so did my family, and we still are. But it was worth it, because maybe the movement wouldn't have been built as quickly or ever. I don't know. A lot of us, if we hadn't. So that's where the story comes from. And that's why I do urge people to buy the book and read it. We all have these wonderful personal backgrounds that just flood into the movement, and books like yours that people would never discover if they don't find these stories. That's why publishing is so important.
Right. And, I always go back to the story of the 1 minute mile? No, the 4 minute mile. If before people read these kinds of stories, and before they know what's actually possible and what is what they're actually capable of doing by reading these stories, they don't actually believe that they can make a difference in the world. But when they read all of these courageous stories of people who are being brave and making a difference, then they get inspired, they get empowered, and they get activated to stand under their own authority and start making choices that are in alignment with their own values, to stand up for the things that they believe in. Yeah, so these stories are powerful. I often say that the mainstream media is like black magic, because it's like so much fear mongering, and that fear mongering is lowering our vibration and giving us all these things to be afraid of. This is the counter to fear mongering. This is courage coaching. That's what courage coaching is. So thank you very much for sharing your story. And everybody should definitely go and read The Third Jeep. It's the second chapter in the Brave Courage During COVID. But this was, you wrote that story probably like over a year ago. This was published a year ago in May, and a lot has happened since then in the world, in the movement, in our own particular lives. Susan, for people who are not familiar, can you just give us a little bit of, maybe a little bit of a summary of what's gone on in your life over the past year?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I left Vancouver just after the book came out. I left Vancouver because people had come to my home. I was receiving threats, and I realized that there was a safety issue. So I kind of disappeared and I went into the Fraser Valley. I didn't tell anybody where I was going. And that was hard, but I just thought, I don't want anybody knowing where I am. I have to keep being vocal and strong, but I don't want people knowing my address. And people can find you. You mention anything, you have something that photograph, a restaurant in the back of your photograph, boom, they know exactly where you are. So I kind of went into hiding, and it was lovely for our family, and we were homeschooling anyway. And then we decided to leave the country when, in August, when Trudeau and 𝐦𝐤𝐬𝐵 and whoever started talking about the bans, the travel bans. And I saw it coming the year before. I had all of our passports redone. I knew that any restriction that I didn't want, I had to take care of. And I really only have a driver's license and a passport. That's the only thing I have to do with the government. So I started taking care of those things. And I said to my husband, we're going to have to get out of the country, because if this goes sideways, I'm not going down with it. And I'm not going to stay and suffer for one more winter. I don't think I'll make it. And I don't think my kids will make it. And I didn't want to put them back into these public schools. So we had an opportunity to go. We left at the end of August, and we resettled, and it was pretty bumpy. We had a fatality in our family, and you can imagine what that was caused by over here. And so we had a lot of bumps and stops and starts. And now this isn't even our real home. We're moving again this week into our real home. So it's been a much harder road than I thought, but it's fine, because it was also for my husband. He wanted to be in England. He's British. My kids love it. And we wanted to come here anyway before COVID. I was trying to get some work done in London. So it was sort of back, it was like getting us back on track, although in a completely different way. And now I still advocate for Canadians in our movement in a totally different way. And I have no intention of stopping. I'm just sort of folding it back into my creative life.
Right. And you still sell your health justice teas from over there?
Yep. Yeah. I call them made in, because it's so weird. Everybody's like, what are you doing here? I'm in the north, right? I'm in the part of England where people don't usually come. And I call it made in England by a Canadian. So it all works. It is a British brand. It's a British company now. And I will probably rent a first little shop where I will actually sell them and make them for the first time next month or this summer to see. And it's a t-shirt company, a fashion business above all. It has the justice to it, but primarily I'm building a fashion brand. And that was something also I was doing before COVID. I was designing a line of dresses just for fun. I was going to sell on the beach and just see for my retirement if I could be a dressmaker. So I'm just bringing those things back in. I will always sell the t-shirts. And if I have a chance to build the business, I could imagine having, 5 or 10 of these shops. Like when I was a kid, we had something called the Dog's Ear. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that, but it was a chain of fashion t-shirt stores in the Lower Mainland. And this kind of business does well. It's a nice turnkey business. So that's our plan, is to keep making them and keep selling them.
Yeah. And the purpose behind your t-shirts, I think you told me once, it was like, this is one of the ways of advertising, advocacy. And you had a shirt made up for me. You had the Brave AF shirt.
Yeah.
I loved those.
Yeah.
So, and somebody is in Vancouver still helping you with selling the t-shirts?
Well, lots of people would help me, I think, if I asked them. And I offer paid work. So, but my business partner is actually leaving. She's getting on one of these charters and she's leaving. She may go back. She's property and stuff, but she's escaping too. So I don't have her on a day-to-day basis. Before she was doing lots of stuff, but she's going through her own transition. Her name's Nicole, and she was just building an acting career when COVID started. And that's been very hard for her. As you know the industry, very hard for her to potentially let go, but she can't imagine going back on set with all these restrictions. She'll never comply. So she's on her own journey now. She's going down to the States, I believe, at first. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I walked away from the entire industry because I didn't want to comply with the masking and the testing and the social distancing. And I just didn't even I didn't like the idea of having a COVID marshal watching over me, telling me how close I was allowed to stand to my friends. So I couldn't imagine myself working in that kind of an environment. So I walked away from my 20-year career. So I understand how she feels. And to be honest, and I think I've spoken to you about this as well, when I started to speak out and approach the union and ask questions about all of these COVID regulations, nobody in the union or in the entire industry or community would stand beside me and ask questions. Everybody was absolutely horrible to me. So having said that, I've lost pretty much all of my community in film, and I don't really have any desire to go back because I'm very passionate about what I'm doing now, and I feel like I have more of meaning and purpose in the work that I'm moving forward with. So I don't think I'm ever going to go back to falling down for a living.
I'll tell you a funny story. Have you ever heard of this woman called Samira Armstrong?
Nope.
Samira Armstrong. I'll send you her Instagram link. So she was an actress, or is an actress, and her hometown is Sedona, but she was raised in Japan. She has a really interesting background. She's running for mayor of Sedona now. So imagine that. She went from part-time actress building a career. She's running for mayor, and I wouldn't be surprised if she wins. She's incredibly intelligent. She's got tons of support, great branding. So, you know, what a different journey so many of us are on. And like you say, there are some pieces of the other life I want back because I invested a lot of time or money in creating things like a television series. And that's been very hard for me to think, oh, just throw it all in the garbage. But if it never happens, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a journey for everyone that leads us up to where we are today. And I walked away from my 20-year career falling down for a living, and I feel a lot better stepping into my path and my purpose now and standing up for something instead of falling down. But
Nice analogy. I like that.
yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So that leads me to, this was the very first book, and it is green because courage comes from the heart.
Oh, I wondered why you chose the green. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it activates the heart chakra actually, because whenever we're standing up in defense of things that we love, we're activating our heart chakra. So that's where courage comes from. And then this is the second book that came out, I think, in September of last year. It's called Speaking Truth to Power. And these are some of the loudest voices across the country that are countering the mainstream media narrative. And they're doing it through newspapers and podcasts. And there are some rappers and some singers and comedians, and you know, they all have their own brand of speaking truth to power. So, and it is blue because it activates the throat chakra.
Okay, nice.
And then this is the most recent book. It just came out. It's called The Brave Ascending Human Consciousness. And it's about all of the light workers and the empaths and the oracles and the intuitives that are helping to heal with all these different healing modalities, but they're also helping to expand our consciousness and awareness. Essentially, they're helping with the Great Awakening, the awakening process. So all of these authors are very brave because they're also at the forefront of the movement in their own way, but they're taking a different perspective and they're activating the third eye. That's why it's purple. And then the fourth book, and I don't think I've even told you about this one, the fourth book is called The Brave Manifesting New Earth. And it's about all of our possibilities and opportunities to create the new earth that we all want. And it's by manifesting and focusing and visualizing peace on earth. Whenever I say that, people are like, oh yeah, that'll never happen. But no, it will actually happen. We have to start focusing on and putting our energy towards the things that we want to happen. So the possibility of becoming more self-reliant and self-sufficient, permaculture, exiting the 3D matrix of control, and developing more like-minded communities, and having access to over 6,000 new technologies and healing modalities like med beds. And then, you know, our new financial system that's coming in, like all of these possibilities and opportunities of the new earth and the future that we all want to create. It's all about manifesting new earth. And I'm going to have 20 authors, I think I already have all 20 of them picked out, that are going to be sharing their stories of focusing on the direction that we want to go and manifesting new earth. And that will be activating our crown chakra. There's a lot of really good things happening, and there's a lot of really good things coming. So sometimes we need to take our focus away from all of the darkness and the corruption and the fraud and the crime, and we need to start focusing on all of the amazing things that are happening, and the peace and the love and the compassion and the prosperity and the abundance that is going to be available for everyone on the planet. That's what I like to focus on and visualize.
Yeah, and so much more of that is going on than sometimes we would be led to think, because the corruption and the dark forces control so much of mainstream media. So I think it leads people to believe that there's a lot more worse stuff going on than there actually is.
Right.
Like, I don't bump into the worst stuff very often. I don't ever bump into bad people.
Right.
It just seems like it. Like, you think of this whole Bill Gates issue that's coming to Vancouver and all this stuff about what their event, but comparative to the number of people who are doing, as you say, awakened lightworker work in the lower mainland, it's a minuscule amount of people. But they're so dominant or powerful or wealthy, it seems like that is most of the activity. But as you say, and when you don't read mainstream media like I do, like, I always have to remind myself, oh right, there's all this bad stuff going on, because I'm always in the good part of society.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's two, and I'm in the good part, and I've been in that part mostly for the last 20 years, working on good works and being a light worker. I didn't call it stuff like that, but
yeah, it's just
that's exciting. So are you going to do 7 books, because there's 7 chakras, right?
That I have contemplated that. I haven't really decided if I'm going to go for all 7. I know that I'm going to complete all 4 of the books this year, and I'm going to complete all 4 of the audiobooks, which are coming out as well. I decided to do the audiobooks, and I am a performer, so I will be doing the narration myself. I have a unique voice. So, and I wanted to share a little bit of my energy and my passion by narrating the books in myself. So this is something else that I have to learn how to do, and I'm excited about it. So that's all going to work out. But I also want to talk about your book coming out.
Okay, yeah.
You are such a powerful storyteller, and you've got so much experience and wisdom to share with everybody. Can you please tell us about your new book coming out and a little bit of the background behind it?
For sure. Okay. Well, I was one of those people that from day one, and since I was out right from the beginning, and because of my background and doing this work all over the world, I was always one of the people focusing on, okay, what is the big umbrella of what's really happening to us? And where are we going to be a year from now, 5 years from now? Like, I was thinking about that. How is this whole movement and this protest thing going to travel over the next 5 years? And when you start, and David Icke talks about that, when you kind of figure out the end game or what it should be, you can work backwards. And so for me, it was always about getting our stories out, and then seeing someone like you doing your books. I thought, okay, well, I have to tell my personal story, because I was so instrumental in the beginning, and what happened to me didn't happen to very many people at that period in that way. So I decided to write it as like a memoir. And this is one cover. I like the white cover better. These are from my printer. They're samples. But a lot of people said that, and it's green. And so, like you said, it's that energy, the green energy. And I really just wanted to produce like a memoir, a personal story, and mostly for women, because women love that, and they're very moved by reading somebody's story. Like you said, they're inspired. We're inspired when we read somebody else's story. And I thought, what can I put out in the public again that isn't me at a march or speaking, but then that a woman can kind of cozy up with a cup of tea and feel like, okay, I can be healed. I can raise my voice. I could do what she did in a way that is for me in my community. And stories are always like that for us. So they are print books. I may do audio, I don't know. And I didn't know what to call it. It's a lot of my personal story, all this really bad crap that happened to me. It's a tell-all, it's a ground war story. It's very exciting. But the name that I had come up with was anti-masker, because that's what I'd been called so much, like so many of us, and specifically people like me in the very beginning. That's what they used to slander us. And my husband said, I just don't know about the title. And I said, well, what should I call it? I hadn't even really thought about it. And one of his favorite books was called The Great Betrayal. And it was written by a fellow named Ian Smith, who was the leader of Rhodesia before it became Zimbabwe. And he talked about how the world really betrayed this part of Africa. And it's a much longer story. And I was like, betrayal, betrayed. I love that. I'll call it Betrayed. And I realized that summarizes what happened to me personally, like family-wise, friends-wise, government, everyone, all this betrayal. But it's everybody's story. All 36 million of us were completely betrayed. We're still being betrayed. And then people like you, other people who spoke out, nurses, doctors, teachers, children. If there's one word, it's betrayed. And you hear it now in the interviews. I was listening to one of the big guys like Alex Jones or McCullough or Reiner Fulmick or one of these interviewers, David Martin, and everybody is using that word now, the word betrayed. So because it has mostly happened now. In the beginning, in the first 6 months, we were all just going, what's happening? Now we kind of know how it all worked, and we're looking back on it as a story. And unfortunately, this is how you have to, the step that has to happen before you can have criminal convictions is you have to let the crime be committed. You have to watch the guy rob the house before you can arrest him when he's coming out of the house with all the silverware, right?
Right.
And so now we know that it's all kind of happened. The full cycle, the first full cycle has happened. And I think it's a really good time. The book was going to come out last year, but it's actually much better that it's coming out now. It's more contemplative. And I'm hoping that the Canadians will buy it and will read it and feel like this is my story. It's their story. I'm writing it. I'm telling it. But everything that happened to me in this book happened to all of us.
Right, absolutely. I personally can't wait to read this story because I've always found all of your stories and your share is so incredibly empowering and informative. So I will definitely be getting the book. And are you going to have it available on Amazon or?
I'm not doing that.
No?
No,
Okay.
I'm doing, as we said, I was talking to you about before the intro, that my plan is to offer the book into our community and our economy as a wholesale product so people can make money.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do Amazon. I may never do Amazon. I may never do the audio. I'm trying to sell 10,000 units in a year, which is not easy at all. I mean, I think a bestseller is 5,000 in Canada, but that's how I'm kind of building it backwards from that. And I just got 2 big orders, which is great. And I really just want to focus on price point and making sure that other people see that they could also make some money on selling the book so they can finance their advocacy and their nonprofits or their groups or whatever it is. Because we need that. We need an economy. And that's why your book was so important, right? It was the first product, I think, it was one of the first products other than things like t-shirts that was put out there. And it's like you say, we have to rebuild all of these new things. We have to build a new publishing industry, a new television industry. The Daily Wire has just launched television programs because families don't want their kids watching Disney anymore. So the opportunities are actually really quite intimidating. They're so big.
Right. And like you said, it couldn't be better timing for your book to come out because people are just starting to realize all of the corruption and that they've been lied to. They have been betrayed. Every single solitary one of us individually, but everybody as the collective on the planet. I mean, look at the US elections. People are just starting to figure out that that's actually not the real president. We've been betrayed. Everything that we've been told is a lie, and we've been betrayed in all areas, from our medical system to the schooling system, the political system, the judicial system. They've lied to us about everything. The banking system, it's all a big lie, and we have been betrayed. And I think I can't wait to read this book, actually. So it's going to be available on your website.
Well, I'll have to get you. Yeah, I'll give you some copies to give away as well. Well, yeah, and now, right? So now, this is again one of those sort of umbrella long-term things that people like me were thinking about. It's like, okay, so now how do we lead the movement now that everybody's waking up and everybody's going to get really angry, especially the people who are injured physically. I mean, we're all devastated financially, but you know, if 20 or 30 million Canadians start to get really angry over the next year, how are we going to give them the tools to turn that into action and transformation, like you said, activation? Because, you know, we're done with the protests and all that, really. They're important to keep doing, but the most important thing we need now is to rebuild governance models so we can be protected. And how do we get a country behind that? It's possible, eh? You know what I've been studying this week is how Iceland convicted their prime minister. When the government did this to Iceland, right, I guess 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and a lot of people thought, oh, well, corruption in Iceland, the banks, whatever. No, they didn't take it lying down. They went through the whole process, conviction, sentencing, everything, and they protected Iceland. I mean, they're a very small country, but I want that to happen. I don't want to give up on that goal. And that it took them, what, 10 years? So how many of us are ready for that long-term strategic change over the next 5 years and not let these people just walk out and resign and be unelected and go off and retire? We need convictions.
Absolutely. They need to be arrested and charged for their crimes against humanity, and they need to pay. They need, I mean, what they've done to across Canada is an atrocity. And they can't just like, when the mandates, I think the vaccine passport is going to be removed this week here in BC. But when the mask mandate was removed and everybody was celebrating, I was like, okay, all right. Bonnie Henry said we can take off the mask. Not that I ever wore one, but, and that's it. No, she needs to be arrested. She needs to be publicly arrested. And everybody needs to know that she is a puppet and she has been lying about absolutely everything. I mean, ending the mandates is not good enough at all. No, we need to remove the upper echelon of the entire government of Canada, actually.
Well, have you met or come across or interviewed this woman, Nicole De Braser? And do you know what she's doing? Because she's doing that exact thing. And she's hired a British legal team in London because we actually need the British government to amend a statute to allow us to do that. And she's been working on this for about 13 years. She's an amazing story if you ever go in that direction with other books or whatever around
What is her name again?
Nicole De Braser, so DEBRASSEUR. She's either in Saskatchewan or Manitoba, so I don't think she's in Quebec, but she's French Canadian. And her organization is called the Canadian People's Union, or her website is I'll remember it. It's based on the shift, the power shift. So she has an organization and kind of a movement, but she's been doing this for 13 years and she's figured it out. And there's 2 statutes that need to be amended. And one of them, Brian Peckford will know about this. So if you're going to do a series or a book on people, voices, bravery, and governance, which I would love, I would buy and read that book because that's my passion. She's one of them.
Right.
Bravery and governance. Yeah, and Brian Peckford, he would be another one. Let me know if you want to do that and I'll help you get some authors.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Yeah, well, I do have more book ideas, but right now I'm just finishing off these 4 books and doing the audiobooks, and that's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of the year. And then who knows, I might take a little break because these, you know, it's a lot of work putting these together.
That's amazing. 3 books, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just like collaboration because I only write 1 story per book myself, and then I've got 19 other authors. So it's mostly just collaboration and organizing and bringing it all together and curating it. But it's a process, and I learned how to do it, and I'm getting pretty good at it. And so now I'm just focusing on the marketing and the promotion and getting my audiobooks out there. So if anybody is interested in any one of the Brave books, you can also buy these books off of Susan's website, and I'm going to put all of that information on the description of this video below. So any one of these books you can buy off of, they are on Amazon right now, and I am looking for other platforms, but also on my platform. ladybravenofthepride.com. So you can get all of these books. If you buy all 3 of them together, you get a little bit of a discount. You get $10 off.
Nice.
And then, Sue, did you say that you had something that you wanted to offer?
Oh, yeah. Okay. As a thank you for being here, and as a way to explain the power of what I feel like I do with my t-shirts and why I chose t-shirts, because it was very intentional. We had to make money in the movement to pay for stuff and rent things in the very beginning, back in April of 2020. And I knew that, and I didn't have anything because we went into bankruptcy basically, right? And a stranger came up to me and said, I want to give you $500 because you're going to need money. And I said, okay, well, what do you want me to do with it? And he said, it doesn't matter to me, but you're going to need money, and here's $500. So I thought, okay, I got to double this. So I bought t-shirts, I designed t-shirts and sold them, and I kept doubling the money, and we made about $10,000 in 3 months. So we always had money every week to pay everybody and do everything. And then I decided that I was going to design my own line, because that money was for the movement and I didn't take any of it. And it just said no more lockdowns. And so people became to know me as the t-shirt person. And I wanted to offer this t-shirt to your viewers, or whoever wants to. You can win it or do whatever. Just tell me where to send it for a winner. And this one's very special because 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐬𝐿, you may know, is Sanskrit, and it means truth, force, the force of truth, 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸. And it comes from Gandhi. And Gandhi, his movement of peaceful nonviolence was all based in 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, to force the truth, to force the people accountable to participate in truth speaking. And so he became known for that slogan, and he started a march in Gujarat called the Salt March. And that's what I designed the Vancouver March movement on. And basically the whole global march movement was designed on that. It was designed on Gandhi's 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 Salt March that was in, oh God, when was it? The 40s, against the British rule, who had economically abused them basically and stopped them from selling salt. And it was exactly what they did to us when they put the lockdowns in place and they shut all these businesses. And so I took the inspiration from him to start the movement in the spirit of 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸. And this is a shirt that is a unisex, a guy or a girl could wear it. It's long sleeve, they're wonderful to sleep in. And if we can find a way for one of your audience to be given this as a gift, you just let me know how to get it to them and I'll ship it to them from England. Right. So I wanted to keep doing this because if you've ever heard of this movement, or this historical craft movement, I guess it was, called slave blankets. I was able to visit the slave blanket community in Alabama many years ago. And when the slaves were on the properties, being slaves, they couldn't communicate with their people, their family and friends in other slave properties. So they would design messages in blankets, and they would hang the blankets out on the fences, and the blankets would say things in the patterns like a baby has been born or somebody has died. And the owners, the slave owners, had no idea because they were geometric patterns. They were designed. And it was a language that traveled through the communities on the blankets. And I never forgot that story. And so I thought I have to design kind of a secret language so we can find each other. So the truth speakers and the light workers could find each other, even the ones who were too afraid to do what we were doing, who didn't have the bravery. And I realized something like t-shirts could work. And so when people started seeing the t-shirts, and you go to any rallies, you'll see a few of my t-shirts, and you'll see all the t-shirts now. But in the beginning, nobody was making them except me. And it was a way to find each other and to put a message of justice out in the public. Even if you just stand on a street corner with the t-shirt that says COVID fraud, 1,000 people could see it in half an hour. And that's power. And we didn't have access to billboards or magazines or newscasts, but we had our bodies, we had ourselves. And so that's why so many of us started with t-shirts. And I call it pedagogy, public pedagogy. And my vision for it is art. So I don't put brands and stuff on it. I just put art and messages. So mostly women and people who are into fashion will want to wear them. So that's a gift. That's a gift for you and your community. As a thank you for having me today.
Oh, I love it. And thank you very much for explaining that all of the passion that goes behind your t-shirt, your health justice tees, which are also available at healthjusticetees.com.
Yep, that's the e-commerce site, and that's where the book sells as well.
Right. Okay. So for all of my listeners in the audience, I would like you to like this video. I would like you to comment below somebody that you know that needs to see this video. And let's say in a week's time, I'm going to take all of the names on the comments below and I'm going to choose a winner. And yeah, so in about a week, I don't know, what is it? It's the second, third today. So by April 10th, we'll choose a winner and then you can send it to them from the UK.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
lovely.
but please, everyone, I would like you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel because I'm going to have a number of really courageous interviews on here, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of bravery, and we're going to be talking about inspiring, empowering, and encouraging people to stand up for themselves during this time. So, and courage is contagious. So please like, share, and subscribe. Susan, do you have anything else that you want to say to everyone before we go?
Well, I guess just in the vein of what I always try and say whenever I have a place to say it, and that is how important it is for all of us to believe that what we do does matter, and how everybody needs to somehow contribute. And Jane Goodall is one of my heroes. She talks about that. All of us matter. Every voice counts, no matter what it is. It's that one drop in the bucket that fills the bucket. And that's how ultimately we will be living in the future. You know, the stuff isn't going away, whether it's a virus or another virus or the money or whatever. We are now awake to the fact that there is a major agenda of corruption trying to control and enslave us in the planet. So this is it for us for forever now. We have to live always as people who speak justice. And that's why I do what I do as a brand and as a business, as a lifestyle brand, because justice is a lifestyle and it really has to be our future lifestyle. If anybody's interested in freedom, you better start speaking out because we need everybody. So just find a way, whatever it is, send an email, go to a meeting, organize a book club, buy your book, raise some money, raise $100, whatever it is, everybody can do a little thing. And statistically, it has always shown that someone like me, when I started the March movement, I spent $7 at the dollar store and there was 19 of us in the first March. And now there are hundreds of millions of people that march around the world. So never think that what you're about to do is too small. It is like a little piece of snow or ice that falls at the top of the mountain. That's how the avalanche begins. And you could be that person and you have the power to do that every day. We all do.
Thank you so much. You know, Susan, you've been such an incredible inspiration and empowerment for me. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate all of your advocacy and everything that you stand for and your ability to bring people together and empower them with their own courage and to believe in themselves. So thank you very much. It's so nice to see you.
I know. I really want to come back and visit. You know, I don't know how possible it's going to be, but just to be able to, like you say, be with everyone a year later, just see our own personal growth and what's become of our lives.
I've been kind of conceptualizing and daydreaming about an event coming up in August.
Nice. Something you're going to organize?
Yeah, it's going to be called the Brave Event. I'm thinking on the Lionsgate Portal, and it will have all 60, I don't know, I'm going to invite all 60 authors and anybody else who is interested in the authors or the book or being brave, or it's just going to be a huge brave event. And it's going to be so incredibly inspiring and empowering. It's kind of like a rally. There's going to, I don't know, I'm thinking of a couple hundred people, but
well, your event in Squamish was beautiful. I mean, you've got the gift for organizing something like that. Now, what did you mean when you said Lionsgate Portal? Is that a place?
August 8th is the Lionsgate Portal. It's
what is that?
It's more of it's like Mercury retrograde. It's like an alignment of the stars. It's like an opening for possibilities and courage to come through because it's the Lionsgate. And I'm a Leo, so I've always resonated with the Lionsgate Portal, and I'm kind of visualizing, I'm not making any announcements yet, but I'm visualizing a big event where we bring all of the authors together, including the authors of the 4th book. So how incredibly empowering and energetic will that event be? And we could share stories, and we could have music, and we could have, we could share different platforms and products, and yeah, it's going to be good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, that's just a little possibility. I mean, if you can make it out here for August.
Yeah, well, you know what I really want to do, and I don't know how this is going to work. I have to check the travel mandates now. I really want to take my kids to France for part of the summer.
All right.
And we can drive there, right? We just get in our Volvo. We've got a Volvo sports car. We just can go through the channel. I really want to take them to see a few places in France that I love, that I visited many years ago, and it's common to do that, and it's a great time in the summer. So we'll see, but there's so much to explore here. I mean, there's Cornwall is beautiful in the summer. There's mountains and lakes. So I can't actually see us blowing the money and the time to leave the country. And I want my children to have a wonderful European British summer for the first time, rather than, oh, let's go back to Canada, because we're still hoping that they really want to fall in love with the idea of living in this side of the world. And the house that we're moving into, my husband plans to purchase and really set up a life here. So, but we'll see. Who knows? You never say never. I'm terrified if I enter Canada, I'm going to be arrested or something. So I don't think I would take the risk at this point.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities and opportunities. I think it's just important to believe that, this is going to be resolved. This is not our new normal. This is not our new lives. Things are going to change. Things are changing as we speak. There's a lot going on. None of it is televised. None of it is on the news. But there is a lot going on behind the scenes. And I always believe in the good things coming. And I look forward to seeing you in person again one day.
Yeah, awesome. Lovely, you too. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your time and your generosity and your beauty and your words and everything. And again, it's like this looking to the future. We think of the struggle of getting these books out and running this business and having, the day-to-day life. Just imagine what it's going to feel like for you when you look back on this period of your life 5 years from now.
Right.
What, because we're all just in it right now, right? What you've built and the legacy of that. And think of all these other books that people have, like all the books behind you, that people have read for decades, important books.
Well, our books are a little bit different than those books just because they're counter-narrative and they're censored and they're banned, and marketing and promotion isn't as easy as a number of these books behind me, but we're figuring it out. There is a way, and there are possibilities and opportunities. We just have to figure out what works for us. Yeah.
You know what you might want to do, and I should do this too. Do you remember, I don't know how old you are, but when I was in high school, we read a book by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. And Ivan was a Russian fictional character. It was based on a real guy. And Solzhenitsyn is one of Russia's great novelists. And who would have known that kids in Vancouver in the 1980s would be reading a book that he wrote 20 years before about Russia, about 40 years before in Russia. So you never know. And maybe that's even a place where people like authors like you and I could start looking at, is schools and classrooms, because this is the education for Canadians.
Yes. Absolutely. Actually, I have thought about that. I can envision and imagine the entire book set being used in classrooms, even 10 years from now, to teach kids what really happened, the truth about what happened, and using these individual stories as maybe case studies, because that there is no mainstream media that's going to be sharing what's actually happened on the individual and personal level all across Canada. So yes, I can definitely foresee and imagine and visualize the entire book set being used in schools and sold all across the country to teach kids, to inspire them and empower them about what's possible and what it means to stand up for themselves in a time of government corruption, medical fraud, and global tyranny.
Yeah, and the way it works in schools, I don't know if you know this, is that every teacher can procure their own reading materials. They don't have to get what the schools tell them to. It's very open, and so you just got to find a couple of teachers at a couple of interesting schools that say, or even drop off some as samples for readers. And they literally can't tell the teachers what to teach anymore. So maybe there's a way to do that.
I didn't know that. I'm going to start reaching out to teachers.
Yeah, especially if you, I mean, we can all start helping you do this. And all you need is a couple of dozen teachers across the country who say, well, I'm going to bring in Lanny's book. They're constantly purchasing their own books to bring into the classroom. And they have that right, especially maybe start in British Columbia. We may have some of the most progressive legislation around curriculum. And Christy Clark, I guess, when she was the premier, apparently she is the one that is responsible for that. She was quite visionary around that. And that was hard for us to leave because it's not like that in England. The school system isn't as modern. So you could find those, like my teachers, my high school teachers were very progressive, anti this, whatever, getting us to read these books. So there you go. And not necessarily for a book like mine, but yours are very different because I could see them blending really well into libraries and academia and study and homework clubs and stuff like that, because they're so factual. And are they all Canadian? Are all 60 writers Canadian? Yeah, that's amazing. Well, let me know. Let's collaborate on that. I would love to help with that.
Have you ever seen the movie Freedom Writers?
No.
Okay. What's her name? What's the name of that actress? I can't remember right now, but it's about this teacher who starts working at a new school, and she starts introducing new books to the classroom, and it changes everything for them. Right. She had to go out and buy the books herself because the school wouldn't support her, but it just activated every one of those children and changed the trajectory of their lives. Just by sharing like true information that is inspiring and empowering.
Yeah, so, and I bet you could find American teachers who would do it, maybe more so than Canadian right away, because they have nothing to lose, right? They're promoting Canadian stories. They're not going to get backlash from their government. Dead Poets Society was like that too, right? Remember Robin Woods and how he ignited and inspired all those young boys to believe a different story. And so that you'll find that space. I'm sure you will. Maybe not immediately, but over the next year. And a lot of kids are walking into these schools and they know full well, especially 14, 15, 16 years old. They're very awake. They know full well what happened to them.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. Again, inspiring me.
Well, we all have to help each other, right? We're building a new economy. So it's win-win for all of us. So let's stay in touch on that. Thank you again, Lanny. I really appreciate that today.
Okay, well, that's it for today. And thank you everyone again. Please like this video and share it with your friends that need inspiration to be brave. And subscribe to this channel because there's a lot more information that's going to be coming out, a lot more interviews with all of my authors that have fascinating stories to share. And always remember that courage is contagious. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.